Hello, family. Welcome to Stories with JAYVIL. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video to your friends and loved ones, and remember to turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Now sit back and relax as we dive into the story. In the heart of Riverbend, a small yet bustling Nigerian town, Grace, affectionately called Mama Grace, stood as a beacon of strength. Known for her unrelenting determination and unwavering faith, she was the woman everyone turned to in times of need. As a nurse and the sole breadwinner of her family, Mama Grace carried the weight of her household on her capable shoulders. Her story was one of resilience, sacrifice, and an unshakable love for her family. Mama Grace's day began long before the sun rose. By 4 a.m., she was already preparing breakfast for her family. Her eldest son, Michael, often watched in admiration as she moved swiftly through their modest kitchen. He couldn't fathom how she managed to juggle her demanding job at the local clinic, run a small pharmacy, and still find time to ensure they never lacked anything. "Mama, do you ever rest?" Michael asked one morning as he helped her peel yam for breakfast. She smiled, the lines of fatigue on her face softening. "Rest will come, my son," she replied. "When all of you have found your paths and stand strong, then I will rest." Her words were both comforting and a reminder of the immense sacrifices she made for her family. Michael, now a teenager, felt a growing sense of responsibility to ease her burdens. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, not just to fulfill his ambitions, but to honor the woman who had given him everything. The family's home was a small, weathered house at the edge of Riverbend. Though modest, it was filled with warmth and laughter. Mama Grace's touch was evident in every corner, from the neatly arranged furniture to the vibrant Ankara curtains she had sewn herself. The walls were adorned with framed Bible verses and pictures of her children, each representing a milestone she had fought hard to achieve for them. Her husband Obina was a stark contrast to her. A man content with the bare minimum, he often shrugged off the family's struggles. "We take life as it comes," he would say, reclining in his favorite wooden chair. His attitude frustrated Grace, but she never let it deter her. "If I wait for you, this family will sink," she told him once, half joking, half serious. "So I will do what needs to be done." Despite her sharp words, there was no animosity between them. Mama Grace understood that while Obina lacked ambition, he was still a loving father who adored their children. Her children, Michael, Amara, Uchenna, and little Ibuka, were her greatest treasures. Each of them looked up to her with a mix of love and awe. Amara, the second-born, often mimicked her mother's confidence, dreaming of becoming a lawyer. Uchenna loved helping at the pharmacy, watching and learning as his mother managed the business. And Ibuka, the youngest, brought endless joy to the family with his innocent laughter. The people of Riverbend admired Mama Grace. Her colleagues at the clinic spoke of her tireless work ethic, while her customers at the pharmacy praised her fairness and kindness. "She's not just a nurse," said one elderly woman. "She's an angel sent to help us." For Mama Grace, life was not without its challenges. The town's economic struggles meant that salaries were often delayed, and basic amenities like electricity and water were scarce. But she faced every obstacle with grace and grit, refusing to let hardship define her or her family. In Riverbend, Mama Grace was more than a mother or a nurse. She was a symbol of hope. Her life was a testament to the power of resilience, and her story was just beginning. Life in Riverbend, though vibrant and full of community spirit, was far from easy. The town was plagued by systemic issues that made day-to-day living a struggle for its residents. Civil servants who formed the backbone of the local workforce often went months without pay. The lack of basic amenities like electricity and clean water turned simple tasks into daily battles. Yet, in the midst of these challenges, Mama Grace stood tall, unwavering in her determination to provide for her family. Every morning, Mama Grace embarked on a routine that had become second nature. Dressed in her vibrant Ankara attire, she tied her scarf firmly around her head, picked up her well-worn bag, and set off on foot to her pharmacy. The journey was long, stretching across dusty roads and uneven paths, but Mama Grace walked with a purpose. Her resilience earned her the nickname Iron Woman among the townspeople. Walking was not a choice but a necessity for many in Riverbend. The economic downturn had made fuel unaffordable for most, leaving cars abandoned in driveways. Men in office attire and women carrying market goods now relied on their rubber-powered legs to navigate the town. Though the situation was dire, the community found humor in their shared struggle, often laughing about how the tough terrain was building their endurance. For Mama Grace, however, walking was more than a means to an end. It was a daily act of defiance against the hardships of life. She never complained, even when the sun was scorching or the rain turned the roads into muddy rivers. "Every step I take is for my children's future," she often said, her voice steady with conviction. Her pharmacy, a modest shop tucked into a bustling street corner, was her lifeline. The wooden shelves were stocked with essential medications, neatly organized by her meticulous hands. A simple sign above the door read, "Grace's Chemist," a name that had become synonymous with reliability and care in Riverbend. Customers trickled in throughout the day, seeking advice or affordable remedies for their ailments. Mama Grace treated each one with patience and warmth, often offering words of encouragement along with their prescriptions. She understood that her role extended beyond selling medicine. She was a pillar of support for her community. On Sundays, however, Mama Grace allowed herself a different kind of work, spiritual rejuvenation. As a devout Christian, she never missed church, where she was known for her passionate prayers and unwavering faith. Clad in her best attire, she led fellowship sessions with a fervor that inspired others. "God is my anchor," she would say. "Without him, I am nothing." Her faith was a source of strength not just for her, but also for her children. Every Sunday morning, she gathered Michael, Amara, Uchenna, and Ibuka in the living room for a brief family prayer before heading to church. "No matter how tough life gets," she told them, "never forget to pray. It's the only way to stand tall." Despite the hardships, Mama Grace remained a beacon of hope in Riverbend. Her unshakable determination inspired those around her, and her efforts kept her family moving forward. She believed that challenges were meant to be overcome, and she carried that belief in every step she took on the dusty roads of her town. The townspeople admired her resilience, often marveling at her strength. "If Mama Grace can keep going, so can we," they would say, finding motivation in her example. For Mama Grace, every day was a battle, but she faced each one with a fierce determination, knowing that her sacrifices would pave the way for a brighter future for her children. Mama Grace's life revolved around her children. For her, they were not just the future, they were her reason to persevere through the toughest challenges. She poured every ounce of her energy into ensuring their well-being, nurturing their dreams, and preparing them for a world beyond the struggles of Riverbend. Her eldest son, Michael, was her pride. He had inherited her determination and work ethic, qualities that shone in his academic achievements. Michael dreamed of becoming a doctor, inspired by his mother's dedication to helping others. He often stayed up late studying by the light of a lantern, while Mama Grace worked on her pharmacy accounts at the same table. "Mama, one day I'll make you proud," he said one evening, his voice filled with quiet resolve. "You already do," she replied, smiling at him. "But remember, success isn't just about you. It's about lifting others as you climb." Amara, the second-born, was just as driven as her brother. Her fiery spirit and sharp mind made her a natural debater, and she dreamed of becoming a lawyer. She often sought her mother's advice on essays and debates, finding comfort in her wisdom. "Mama," she asked one day, "how do you always know the right thing to say?" Grace chuckled softly. "Life has taught me many lessons, my dear. The key is to listen, learn, and speak from the heart." Uchenna, the quiet and observant middle child, preferred to help at the pharmacy. He admired his mother's efficiency and often mimicked her actions, learning how to manage inventory and assist customers. His presence was a source of comfort for Mama Grace, who saw in him the same quiet strength she possessed. Little Ibuka, the youngest, brought light and laughter to their home. Though too young to fully understand their struggles, his innocent joy reminded the family of what they were fighting for. His laughter often echoed through their small house, lifting everyone's spirits. Mama Grace's love was not limited to words. She was intentional about creating moments of joy and togetherness despite their limited resources. Birthdays were marked with small but meaningful celebrations, often a simple meal with an extra serving of meat or a surprise sweet treat. Life may be hard, she told her children, but we must always find reasons to smile. Education was a cornerstone of her values. Mama Grace believed that knowledge was the key to breaking the cycle of poverty. She sacrificed her own comfort to ensure her children could attend school, often going without new clothes or meals to pay their fees. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. The townspeople often commented on how well-behaved and ambitious her children were. Mama Grace is raising a generation of leaders, one neighbor said with admiration. But her love wasn't just about pushing her children to succeed. It was also about teaching them values. She emphasized honesty, kindness, and gratitude, often reminding them, "Character will take you further than money ever will." Mama Grace had a ritual she cherished. Whenever one of her children reached a milestone, whether it was graduating from school or achieving something significant, she handed them a Bible. "This is your guide," she would say, sliding the book into their hands. "No matter where life takes you, let this be your compass." Her children held onto these moments tightly, knowing they were more than just gestures. They were promises of her unwavering belief in them. Mama Grace's love was a force that shaped their lives, instilling in them the courage to dream big and the strength to face life's challenges. In Riverbend, people often spoke of Mama Grace as an example of what a mother could be. She wasn't just raising children, she was building a legacy of hope, resilience, and faith. For her, the ultimate reward wasn't material wealth, but seeing her children rise above the struggles of their present and create a brighter future. Life in Riverbend had begun to take a toll on Mama Grace. For years she had carried the weight of her family's needs on her shoulders, rarely allowing herself a moment of rest. Her once tireless stride began to falter and her vibrant smile dimmed. At first, her children dismissed her fatigue as the result of her hard work, but as her condition worsened, concern grew. Michael was the first to notice something was wrong. One evening as Mama Grace returned from the pharmacy, her steps were slower than usual. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed her bag on the table. "Mama, are you okay?" Michael asked, his voice tinged with worry. "I'm fine, my son," she replied, brushing off his concern with a weak smile. "Just a little tired." But the tiredness persisted, soon accompanied by alarming weight loss and occasional bouts of dizziness. Michael insisted she visit the clinic where she worked, and after much persuasion she reluctantly agreed. The day of the hospital visit was heavy with unspoken fears. Michael accompanied her, sitting silently as they waited for the doctor. The test took hours, and the air grew heavier with each passing minute. Finally, the doctor returned, his expression somber. "Mama Grace," he began gently, "we found something concerning. You have cancer." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Michael's heart sank as he tried to process the news. His mother, the unbreakable matriarch, was facing a battle he never imagined she'd have to fight. Mama Grace, however, remained calm. "What stage is it?" she asked, her voice steady. "It's advanced," the doctor replied. "We need to start treatment immediately." Michael struggled to hold back tears as they left the clinic. His mind raced with questions, but none of them could be answered. Mama Grace, sensing his turmoil, reached out and squeezed his hand. "Michael, this is just another challenge," she said softly. "We've faced so much before, and we'll face this too." Despite her brave words, the family was shaken. The news spread quickly among her children, each of them grappling with the reality of her diagnosis. Amara returned home from university, determined to help in any way she could. Uchenna stepped up at the pharmacy, taking on more responsibilities to lighten his mother's load. Even little Ibuka, sensing the gravity of the situation, became quieter and more thoughtful. The chemotherapy sessions began soon after, each one leaving Mama Grace weaker than before. Her once radiant complexion grew pale and her hair began to thin, yet her spirit remained unbroken. She continued to pray, sing hymns, and offer words of encouragement to her children. Michael, now an intern at a local hospital, put his career on hold to care for her. He spent sleepless nights researching treatments, consulting with colleagues, and managing her medications. The burden was immense, but he refused to let his mother see his pain. Mama Grace's resilience inspired her family, even as her condition worsened. She refused to let cancer define her, insisting on maintaining as much of her routine as possible. "I am not my illness," she told Amara one afternoon. "I am still Mama Grace and I will fight." The people of Riverbend rallied around her, offering prayers, meals, and financial assistance. Mama Grace had touched so many lives that her battle felt personal to the entire community. For Michael and his siblings, their mother's strength was both a comfort and a challenge. They knew they had to stay strong, not just for her, but for each other. The fight was far from over, but they were determined to honor her resilience and carry her legacy forward, no matter the outcome. The weight of his mother's illness bore down heavily on Michael. As the eldest child, he had always felt a deep responsibility to protect and support his family. But watching his mother, the strongest person he knew, battle cancer was a challenge he wasn't prepared for. Mama Grace's chemotherapy treatments were grueling, leaving her weak and in pain. Michael stayed by her side through every session, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. Yet as the weeks went by, his own strength began to falter. The sleepless nights and constant worry took a toll on him physically and emotionally. Michael found himself unable to concentrate, plagued by feelings of helplessness and fear. His body began to show the strain. He experienced a burning sensation in his chest, which worsened with every passing day. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting night caring for Mama Grace, Michael confided in a colleague at the hospital where he worked as an intern. "I feel like my chest is on fire," he admitted, clutching his shirt. "It's hard to eat or even breathe sometimes." His colleague, a surgeon named Dr. Yo, listened carefully before suggesting he undergo some tests. After a thorough examination, the diagnosis came back: GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. "This is caused by stress, Michael," Dr. Tayo explained. "You've been pushing yourself too hard. If you don't manage it, it could lead to more serious complications." Michael nodded, but deep down he felt conflicted. How could he focus on his own health when his mother was fighting for her life? Determined not to let his condition interfere with his responsibilities, he decided to make lifestyle changes. He gave up alcohol and junk food, replacing them with healthier options like fruits, vegetables, and water. He also started exercising lightly to manage his stress. Despite these efforts, the emotional weight of his mother's illness remained. Late at night, Michael often found himself sitting alone in their small living room, scrolling through articles about cancer and alternative treatments. He wanted to believe there was a solution, something that could give Mama Grace a second chance. One evening, as he sat surrounded by medical books and his laptop, Mama Grace called out to him from her room. "Michael, come here," she said, her voice weak but steady. He rushed to her side, kneeling by her bed. "You're carrying too much, my son," she said, placing a trembling hand on his shoulder. "Let God carry it for you." Her words struck a chord in Michael. For weeks he had been trying to shoulder the burden alone, but his mother's gentle reminder brought him back to the faith she had always taught him. From that day, Michael began to pray more, finding solace in the quiet moments he spent with God. Though the stress didn't disappear entirely, he felt a renewed sense of strength to face the challenges ahead. Mama Grace noticed the change in her son. "That's the Michael I know," she said one morning as he helped her prepare for another chemotherapy session. For Michael, the journey was far from over, but his mother's resilience and faith reminded him that even in the darkest moments, there was always a glimmer of hope. It was this hope that kept him going, determined to honor the sacrifices Mama Grace had made for their family. Despite the relentless progression of her illness, Mama Grace remained a pillar of strength and faith. Chemotherapy was brutal, leaving her body weak and fragile. Her once energetic stride was now replaced with slow, deliberate movements, but her spirit refused to waver. Her children rallied around her, inspired by her unwavering determination. Michael, though dealing with his own health struggles, continued to devote himself to her care. Amara, who had returned home from university, took charge of managing the household, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Uchenna stepped up at the pharmacy, keeping the business alive and serving the community in his mother's absence. Even little Ibuka, though too young to fully understand, tried to help in small ways, often sitting by Mama Grace's side and holding her hand. Their home became a place of quiet resilience. The once lively dinners filled with laughter and stories were now more subdued, but the family clung to the strength they drew from each other. Mama Grace, despite her condition, continued to guide them with her wisdom. One evening, as they sat together, she looked at her children and said, "No matter what happens, remember that we are stronger together. This family is built on love, and love will carry you through anything." Her words brought comfort, but the reality of her condition loomed large. The chemotherapy sessions became harder to endure, each one leaving her more drained than the last. Her hair began to fall out in patches, and her once bright eyes grew tired. Yet Mama Grace never let her children see her despair. She continued to pray with them, sing hymns, and even offer advice about their futures. "Michael," she said one afternoon, "you'll make a wonderful doctor one day. Just remember, healing isn't just about medicine, it's about compassion." The community of Riverbend, too, played a significant role in supporting the family. Neighbors brought meals, church members organized prayer sessions, and customers at the pharmacy often left messages of encouragement. Mama Grace's impact on their lives was evident, and they rallied to give back in her time of need. Despite the support, the battle against cancer was taking its toll. The treatments had limited success, and the doctors warned that the disease was spreading. Still, Mama Grace refused to give up. "I'm not afraid," she told her children one evening as they sat around her bed. "God has a plan and I trust Him. All I ask is that you stay strong for each other." Her words became a source of strength for the family. They knew that even as her physical body weakened, her spirit remained unbroken. One night, as the family gathered for their usual prayer session, Mama Grace asked each of her children to share something they were grateful for. Michael spoke about the lessons he had learned from her. Amara shared her gratitude for the love and guidance that had shaped her life. Uchenna thanked her for teaching him the value of hard work, and Ibuka simply said, "I'm grateful for Mama." The room was filled with a deep sense of love and unity. It was a moment that reminded them all of the bond they shared and the legacy Mama Grace was building, even in her illness. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the family held onto the lessons their mother had instilled in them. They knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together, just as she had taught them. Mama Grace's fight was far from over, but her unwavering faith and love continued to light the way for her family. The signs were becoming clearer. Mama Grace's journey was nearing its end. Her body, once full of energy and life, now grew weaker by the day. But her spirit remained unshaken. She refused to let her illness dictate her final days. Instead, she chose to leave her family with lessons, memories, and blessings they could carry forward. One morning, Mama Grace made a request that surprised her children. "I want to attend my mother's burial," she said, her voice soft but determined. Michael looked at her, alarmed. "Mama, the doctor said you need rest. That trip could be too much for you." Grace smiled faintly. "I need to honor her, Michael. It's the least I can do for the woman who raised me." Her children knew there was no changing her mind. They made the necessary arrangements, ensuring she had as much support as possible for the journey. Despite their worries, Mama Grace was resolute. She dressed in a simple yet elegant Ankara outfit, tying her headscarf with care. Though frail, she carried herself with the dignity and grace that had defined her life. At the church, the service was somber yet uplifting. Mama Grace sat in the front pew, surrounded by her children, as the pastor delivered the sermon. She listened intently, her hands clasped together in silent prayer. But midway through the service, she suddenly slumped forward, her breathing shallow. The congregation gasped. Michael and Amara rushed to her side, their faces etched with panic. "Mama, stay with us," Michael pleaded as he checked her pulse. A voice rang out from the back of the church. It was Mama Grace's sister, Ngozi. "Pray, pray with all your heart," she commanded, dropping to her knees. The entire congregation joined in, their voices rising in fervent prayer. Moments later, Mama Grace stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open and she looked around weakly. "Who prayed like that?" she asked in a faint voice. Ngozi stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "It was all of us, Grace. God isn't finished with you yet." Mama Grace smiled faintly. "Then let us hail the King of Kings." Her words ignited a wave of praise throughout the church. Though she was clearly exhausted, her presence filled the room with hope and gratitude. After the service, her children helped her back into the car. She rested her head against the seat, her eyes closed, but her expression was peaceful. "I've done what I needed to do," she murmured to Michael. "Now it's your turn to carry the torch." The drive home was quiet, the atmosphere heavy with emotion. Mama Grace's words echoed in her children's hearts, a reminder of her strength and love. They knew her time was limited, but they also knew she had given them everything they needed to face the world without her. The trip marked a turning point for the family. Though their grief loomed, they began to accept the inevitable, focusing on making Mama Grace's remaining days as peaceful and meaningful as possible. Her unwavering faith continued to inspire them, even as the shadow of loss grew nearer. Mama Grace had spent her life lifting others, and even in her final days, she remained a source of light and strength. Her farewell was not one of despair, but of gratitude, love, and an enduring legacy that would guide her family long after she was gone. The drive back from her mother's burial left Mama Grace visibly exhausted, but her spirit remained unbroken. She had fulfilled her last major wish, honoring her mother's memory despite her frail condition. Back at home, she called her children together for what they instinctively knew would be one of their final family meetings. Gathered in their modest living room, the siblings sat close, holding hands and bracing themselves for her words. Mama Grace, seated in her favorite chair, looked at each of them with a tender smile. Though her body was weak, her presence radiated strength. "My beloved children," she began, her voice soft but steady, "life has not been easy, but you faced every challenge together. I am so proud of each of you. Michael, Amara, Uchenna, Ebuka, you are my greatest achievements." Michael wiped a tear from his cheek, trying to stay strong for his siblings. "Mama, don't talk like this, we still need you." Mama Grace reached for his hand. "You don't need me anymore, my son. Everything you need, I've already given you. Now it's time for me to rest." She paused, gathering her strength. "Promise me that you'll stay united, love one another, support each other, and never ever lose your faith. Heaven is real, and I want us all to meet there someday." The room fell silent as her words sank in. Even little Ebuka, who didn't fully understand the gravity of the moment, sensed its importance. Amara knelt beside her, resting her head on Mama Grace's lap. "We promise, Mama. We'll honor everything you've taught us." In the days that followed, Mama Grace's health declined rapidly. The once strong woman who had carried her family through life's storms now needed their care. Michael stayed by her side, managing her medications and ensuring she was as comfortable as possible. Amara and Uchenna handled the household chores and pharmacy, while Ebuka brought small moments of joy with his innocent humor. One evening, as the sun began to set, Mama Grace made one last request. "Take me for a drive," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael hesitated. "Mama, you need to rest," she smiled faintly. "Please, just one last drive through Riverbend. I want to feel the wind and see the land I've called home." The children agreed, helping her into the car. They drove slowly through the familiar streets, the golden light of the setting sun bathing the town in warmth. Mama Grace gazed out of the window, her expression serene. At one point she whispered, "Stop and buy some groundnuts." "No need for the bananas." Michael pulled over, but when he turned back to check on her, Mama Grace had closed her eyes. Her face was peaceful, and a slight smile lingered on her lips. "Mama," Michael called softly, his voice trembling. Amara leaned forward, her hand on Mama Grace's shoulder. "She's gone," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The car fell silent as the reality of the moment sank in. Though their hearts were shattered, they found solace in the fact that she had passed peacefully, surrounded by the family she loved so deeply. When they returned home, word quickly spread through Riverbend. Neighbors and friends gathered to console the family, sharing stories of Mama Grace's kindness and resilience. Her passing marked the end of an era, but her legacy was undeniable. For her children, the loss was profound, but they drew strength from her final words. Mama Grace had spent her life teaching them how to face life's challenges with courage and faith, and now it was their turn to carry her legacy forward. The days following Mama Grace's passing were heavy with grief. The house felt emptier without her presence, and the children struggled to adjust to life without their guiding force. Michael, in particular, found it difficult to accept her absence. Despite the promises they had made to stay strong, he often found himself overwhelmed by sorrow. One night, as he lay tossing and turning in his bed, he finally drifted into a deep sleep. In his dream, he found himself standing in a vast glowing field. The air was warm, and a golden light bathed everything in sight. It felt otherworldly, peaceful, and serene. As Michael turned to take in his surroundings, he saw her Mama Grace standing a few feet away. She looked radiant, younger, and healthier than he had ever seen her. Her dark complexion glowed under the golden light, and she was dressed in a flowing white gown. Around her ankle was a delicate golden anklet that shimmered as she walked toward him. "Mama," Michael called, running toward her. His voice was filled with a mix of joy and disbelief. Mama Grace smiled warmly, extending her arms. "My son," she said, her voice as soothing as he remembered. Michael stopped in front of her, tears streaming down his face. "Are you okay, Mama? Are you happy?" She nodded, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I am at peace, Michael. Heaven is everything I dreamed it would be. But I came to see you and your siblings. Are you all taking care of each other?" Michael nodded, though his voice trembled. "We're trying, Mama. We miss you so much." Mama Grace's expression softened, and she leaned in closer. "I will always be with you, my son. In your heart, in your prayers, and in the lessons I've taught you. Never forget that." Michael reached out to hold her hand, but she began to step back. "Wait, Mama, don't leave yet," he pleaded, panic rising in his voice. She gave him one last smile. "Take care of each other, Michael. And remember, I'm proud of you all." As she turned and began to walk away, her figure grew fainter until she disappeared into the golden light. Michael tried to follow her, running with all his strength, but he suddenly jolted awake. He found himself on the floor of his room, his hand reaching toward the door as though still chasing her. His heart raced and tears streamed down his face, but there was a strange sense of peace within him. Michael sat up, breathing deeply as he processed the dream. It felt so real, as though Mama Grace had truly visited him to offer comfort and reassurance. The next morning he shared the dream with his siblings. Amara, Uchenna, and little Ibuka listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. "She wanted us to know she's okay," Michael said, his voice steady, "and that she's proud of us." The dream brought a sense of closure to the family. Though they still mourned her loss, they felt comforted by the knowledge that Mama Grace was at peace. Her love and guidance continued to resonate in their lives, reminding them of the strength and unity she had instilled in them. In the days that followed, Michael and his siblings redoubled their efforts to honor their mother's legacy. Mama Grace's words echoed in their hearts, guiding them through their grief and inspiring them to live lives worthy of the sacrifices she had made. 2 years after Mama Grace's passing, the children she had nurtured with love and determination were thriving. Though the pain of her absence lingered, they carried her lessons and values in their hearts, using them as a foundation to build their lives. Michael, now a practicing doctor, had fulfilled his mother's dream of seeing him succeed. He often thought of her as he treated his patients, remembering her words about compassion being the cornerstone of healing. He carried her Bible with him wherever he went, using it as a source of strength and inspiration during difficult moments. Amara had graduated with honors and returned to Riverbend to serve as a lawyer. Inspired by her mother's resilience, she became an advocate for underprivileged families, offering legal assistance to those who couldn't afford it. Her fiery determination, much like Mama Grace's, made her a force to be reckoned with in the community. Uchenna had taken over the family pharmacy and expanded it into a thriving business. He had added a small clinic to the shop, ensuring that Riverbend residents had access to basic health care. Customers often remarked that his calm demeanor and dedication reminded them of Mama Grace. Even little Ibuka, though still young, carried his mother's memory in his heart. He often asked his older siblings to share stories about her, ensuring that her legacy remained alive in their conversations. The siblings kept their promise to Mama Grace. They stayed united, supporting one another through every challenge and celebrating each other's successes. On Sundays, they gathered in their family home for meals, just as they had when she was alive. The house, filled with laughter and warmth, became a testament to the love and unity Mama Grace had built. One bright afternoon, the siblings decided to visit their parents' graves under the large tree in Riverbend. They carried flowers and a simple meal, intending to spend the day honoring their memories. The graves were modest but well kept, adorned with flowers from friends and neighbors who still remembered Mama Grace's kindness. As they stood together, Michael spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of their shared experiences. Mama and Papa gave us everything they had. Let's never forget the sacrifices they made to get us here. Amara nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. We owe it to them to keep moving forward no matter what. Uchenna, ever thoughtful, added, They taught us that family is everything. As long as we have each other, we'll be fine. Ibuka, holding a small bouquet of flowers, looked up at his older siblings and smiled. I think Mama would be happy with us. The siblings sat together under the shade of the tree, sharing stories and memories of their parents. Though tears were shed, there was also laughter, a reminder of the joy Mama Grace had brought into their lives. In Riverbend, Mama Grace's legacy continued to inspire. Her name became synonymous with resilience and love, and her story was shared among the community as a beacon of hope. Her children, now adults, embodied the values she had instilled in them, serving as living proof of her impact. As the sun set over Riverbend, casting a golden glow across the fields, the siblings stood and held hands, silently promising to carry their mother's legacy forward. Mama Grace's life had been one of sacrifice, faith, and love, and in her children her light continued to shine brightly. Her journey had ended, but her story was far from over. It lived on in the hearts of her children, the people of Riverbend, and the countless lives she had touched along the way. We've come to the end of this story. Please subscribe to my channel to support me. Thank you.